for episode 18. Has anyone ever batted 418, Evan? I'm sure someone has.
I can't tell you, unfortunately. I wish I had prepared something. I don't have anything. So,
Why start now?
hmm
And it's the Hall of Fame show. And I'm your host, Kirk Buchner, along with my host. I actually have to realize that when I point here, it's actually this way when it comes off camera, even though it's the opposite way when I'm looking here. But I'm with this guy, Evan Nolan. And we run notinhalloffame.com, the fictitious athlete Hall of Fame, the fictitious rock and roll Hall of Fame, and the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. And we ask you to, after the show, go vote for that. www.notinhalloffame.com/USA. And you can be a part of the actual voting body of the United States Athletic Hall of Fame. And it's pretty cool because we're transparent, unlike the Hockey Hall of Fame. Now, we might know who's deciding it. We sure don't know who votes on what, how anything works, and I have not seen this much anger from writers regarding lack of transparency. It's actually nice to see Canadians get
hmm
mad for once, other than playing hockey. This is
Well, I
actually,
mean, it's weird because it seems like they buried the hatchet on one side and they got mad again on something else. So,
it is very interesting. So that's really our lead. So let's get right into it. First off, congratulations to the newest members of the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'm not necessarily not what I would have picked, but that's neither here nor there. Either way, there are 7 new Hall of Famers, and it's a huge honor. One thing
Mhm.
I want to say what Hockey Hall of Fame has done so accurately correct is they started early, and we're going to get into that later when we do our plugs. But there's not like you've got a situation like we have in pro football where there are people who we wonder how the hell have they not gotten in. There's never sort of this giant backlog. So we've got that going for it. So I want to commend them for that. But while we do know who the voting body is, it is 18 people.
Mhm.
They will tell you nothing, absolutely nothing. We know that they have to get 14 votes, but we don't even know who the finalists are, if there are finalists at all.
Well, actually, I read the Toronto Sun. You ready? That's how interested I was in this whole process
Okay.
after I saw that.
I
And
probably
if
read the same article, but yeah, go ahead.
my computer would move over, the one about passing on Alexander McGillney.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. On my entire internet just collapsed. Fantastic. All right. So we'll get back to that in a second. But before we go into the problems, let's talk about who actually got in first.
Yeah, so I want to start off with the first 2 people who should have been no-brainers in everyone's minds. First off is the King, Henrik Lundqvist, goalie played his entire career with the New York Rangers, former Vezina winner, took a team that had no business being to the finals in the Rangers. They no business being there. One of the best goalies of that decade, of the 2010s, first ballot Hall of Famer, very much well earned. He's your headliner. The
One
second,
thing,
go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say one thing not on his resume, he never won a Stanley Cup, which
No,
brings us to a couple of goalies who did.
that's true. Yeah, he didn't win a Stanley Cup. Having said that, I don't know that he ever got sort of blamed for that.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
not saying that. I'm saying
yeah.
it's the only thing missing from his resume. I'm not saying he
Right,
doesn't deserve.
right, because he's also an Olympic champion.
I was trying to transition for you, my friend.
Well, yeah, but I'm going to someone else next
Oh,
because
okay.
yeah, because I started off by saying that there's 2 no-brainers, and the second one is someone
Got it. All right.
that we're talking about for the second time in a month, and that is one of the few people to win 4 Olympic gold medals in a row, and that's Canadian Caroline Ouellette, who just
There
two
you go.
months ago entered the International Ice Hockey Federation.
Yeah. There's no question on that one.
Yeah, so we'll talk more about women's hockey a little bit later because you probably read some of the criticisms that I read and heard. Actually, we'll get into that now because Jennifer Botterill is someone who definitely deserves to be, but I think what they're doing on purpose is they're staggering it for 1 per year going
hmm
forward. As much as, and I've said this before, I'll say it again, Canada USA in women's international hockey is a must watch. I don't even care if you're a hockey fan. I think you would get into that. I'm saying that to really anybody watching. It's a phenomenal game. But the reality is, it's pretty much Team Canada versus Team USA, and nobody else is really any good. Because there are some quality Canadians and Americans who aren't making that team, they're not being able to test themselves even at a greater level. So they're not reaching that. So realistically, if you're a female, your only avenue is international. I can't tell you what club team Caroline played for. I know she played for Minnesota Duluth and was pretty good there. So I was looking that up in college. Saying that they're the Canadian Pro League, you can't find it on TV. I don't even know if it's even televised. And I've
Mhm.
been to a game once and it stunk. It's just not good hockey, unfortunately. That was the case 20 years ago. That's the case now. So while I think that Jennifer Botterill is a Hall of Famer, I think Julie Chu will be the next one in after Botterill comes in.
Okay.
You got to stagger this if you're going to go for quality. And I see why they're doing what they're doing. I think Botterill should have been in right away if you don't have that concern, but I think that was their concern. Clearly, they had a concern that, hey, we need more goalies. Okay, I didn't see this coming. We got Mike Vernon, as you said, the segue I didn't pick up on because I had something in my head and I was running with it.
Go for it.
Yes, Mike Vernon and Tom Barrasso, two-time Stanley Cup champions. So let's look at Vernon first off. Champion with Calgary, champion with Detroit. Never won a Vezina, but he was a second-team All-Star at one point, basically meaning that they believed he was the second best player in hockey. Lots of wins, lots of signature moments. Thoughts?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, this, like I said, that they're we've talked about this before. They're kind of the three goalies, so I all felt were kind of the same, and they put two of them in.
Right.
So Vernon and the second one's Tom Barrasso.
Barrasso was so convinced he was going to get in that they couldn't find him for a few hours when they were trying to call him to tell him that you got into the Hall of Fame. He was not
Wow.
standing by his phone. Tom Barrasso did not think he was going to get in, but Tom Barrasso, when he was a Calder winner, was also a Vezina winner. His first 2 years as a goalie are among the top 10 in all of hockey. Never reached those heights again, but he stayed near that top 10 level and was the backstop for some excellent Penguins teams. Uh,
Hmm.
some international accomplishments too. The third player I think you were sort of thinking in that tier is Curtis Joseph, who a lot of people I think felt should be in. Doesn't have the Stanley Cup. Cujo though does have a lot more better advanced metrics. His point shares are way ahead of the other two.
Yep.
Cujo was so good for St. Louis in one playoff. I legitimately, granted, it's Toronto sports. They'll blow. They were blowing Cujo before he became a Leaf, but they were
Hmm.
trying to make a case that he might have deserved to win the Conn Smythe even though St. Louis didn't make the finals. That's how good they sort of thought he was. Cujo, I was looking a lot more deeper into his candidacy, but he was the one that a lot of writers got a little bit upset that he got that nod over Vernon. They were more focusing on Vernon, at least because I just happened to be in Toronto or that area when that happened. So I was listening to sports radio a bit that day of the announcement. Uh, I don't know that I necessarily have a problem with it, but I think you and I both believe that there's the wrong goalie. Well, it's Mike Richter for me, who is the top goalie not in. Richter
Yeah.
is the Stanley Cup champion. Uh,
Of what I've been told, is the only Stanley Cup ever won. Because anytime they have the Stanley Cup, the first thing they do is the Rangers championship in '94. So,
yes, it was. In fact, I think that's absolutely true. I'm planning to go to Vegas for my 51st anniversary on planet Earth extravaganza, and I don't know that they won a cup. I will have to tell them that that's not true. It only
mhm.
happened in New York. But Richter also too was the goalie in the '96 World Cup of Hockey, and he was the MVP if memory serves me correctly. So he's got everything you need. I think he's got a better resume than Vernon, and I truly believe that Vernon Barrasso, maybe not by much, but Richter to me is your American goalie over Barrasso. And I couldn't find if there were any American sports media that sort of went with that angle because in Canada it seemed to be Vernon over Cujo.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing: American sports media doesn't realize hockey exists by and large, unfortunately. Um, I mean, the Ringer has something on every single sport except hockey.
Oh, does it
Uh,
really?
yeah, there's no hockey coverage at all on the Ringer. They have movie coverage, they have fighting coverage, they have no hockey coverage.
Maybe they just don't have
Uh,
anybody to do it.
I'm sure they could find someone.
I'm sure
I
they
mean,
could.
the Athletic is hemorrhaging people like dandruff at this point. You can
Well,
grab somebody.
I've never read anything on the Athletic because of that damn paywall.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the reason.
That would seem to, I can't tell you how many times in the last year I'd see something on Twitter like, oh, and it's damn it, it's the Athletic.
Yeah.
And then I don't do it. So maybe I'm responsible for all of those losses. Sorry, but
It's actually just a cycle of this stuff that happens over and over again, and we pretend that's not going to.
yeah.
So
So that drew a little bit of controversy because I don't think anyone saw this coming. I wonder, and I'll pose this question to you: does Mike Vernon get the nod over other goalies because he happened to be Lanny McDonald's teammate when they won the cup?
wait, who are the 18 people voting? Is Lanny McDonald one of them? I wouldn't be surprised if
Lanny
Lanny
is not just one of them; he's the head of the committee.
Oh, then yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting because that article I was reading from the Toronto Sun about McGillney getting in, and he had a whole thing in there about how it took 6 years for Eric Lindros to get in, and that one of the people on the committee was Bobby Clark, his general manager, and he had problems with Lindros, so he was just making sure Lindros didn't even get nominated. So we don't even know who's nominated on an annual basis, which is insane. So
Right.
when one of the people went and asked one of the voters, "Hey, why is Lindros waiting so long?" He said, "How do you know he was there for us to vote on?" Like that's insane. The fact, like, all right, fine, I get that the votes are secret. I mean, that's not anything surprising, but the nominees being secret is bizarre.
Yeah, the Hockey Hall of Fame does a horrible job in self-promotion. At least the Basketball Hall of Fame, maybe because the basketball is more of a self-aggrandizing sport as it is. It sort of happens almost by default. Actually, remind me there's a football related thing I need to mention later.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right.
but yeah, so with McGillney, then so you read the same stuff that I did, and I listened to that on the radio also. So there's a belief that because they don't want to put McGillney or really any Russian at this point due to the conflict with Ukraine. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I believe that to a certain degree because the Hockey Hall of Fame does try to be somewhat, let's just say the word woke and interpret that however you want. But that's also why Theo Fleury will never get in, Jeremy Roenick will never get in, and Don Cherry will never get in.
I mean, it's well, we'll get to Jeremy Roenick in a second. I was going to talk to him about it probably in your elevator up, elevator down.
Okay.
But because there's one person who did get in who we haven't mentioned yet. Well, for the player on the player side of things.
Yes.
And if I had made a bet with you
Mm-hmm.
that what would have happened first, whether we would have met in person or Pierre Turgeon would be like the Hall of Fame, I would have bet that we would have met in person first.
I would have
As,
bet that I would have met your grandkid first.
as
So
you
look,
know, as anyone who listens to us on a regular basis knows that Pierre Turgeon has been more than just a pet project of mine over the last half decade, and not understand why I got in. We had the whole Alfredson Turgeon thing, I don't know, 3 years ago, which was settled when Alfredson got in last year. Yeah, but Pierre Turgeon, that's what I was saying, burying the hatchet with one group of things, with one thing that they've been angry about to get angry about something else. I was told that he would never ever get in because he refused to get in a fight in 1987.
I'm the one who probably said that over and over. So let's talk about Pierre Turgeon. Obviously, the pros is that it's 1,300. I forget how many points. 1,000.
It was the most points of anybody not in the Hall.
Right. 500 goals, over 1,000 points. That's generally a Hall of Fame career. My knock on Turgeon, and I should just put a caveat here. If you're going to the website, not Hall of Fame, you look at the hockey section. I input somebody initially, and then votes change it all around. My personal wants are not that anymore. They were when it first came up. well, not necessarily personal, because I did try to be as objective as I could. If there was a player I disliked, I mean, like Turgeon. Turgeon was never out of the top 10 since I've done this. But Turgeon was involved in an incident or lack thereof, which is pretty.
He was uninvolved in an incident. Is the
He was
problem.
uninvolved in an incident, yeah, and this is pretty much widely known in Canada and everywhere else, not so much. And that was in the 1987 juniors, which incidentally also involved Alexander McGillney, who's on the other side.
So it's a double slap in the face at McGillney. I got it.
I suppose, but I don't think when McGillney didn't get a call, he thought Turgeon, maybe he did. I don't know. I have no idea what he's thinking. But there was this brutal fight, and probably one of the most brutal fights in all of junior hockey history. Not probably, it is, and involved everybody except for one player who wouldn't get off the bench, and that's Turgeon. Eventually, he did because the coach pretty much browbeat him to do so. But most of his teammates never forgave him, and realistically, yeah, he's not a fighter. He can't fight. But as one player said, I forgot which player it was. You not going out there allows one of my buddies to get double teamed. So, I'm sure you've been in. I know I have. Been a long time ago. We've been in fights covering for people we didn't want to.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta do it.
My last fight was 3 random dudes just jumping my roommate for no reason. We had no idea who they were, and 3 of them just started punching him in the face.
Yeah.
There's not much else I can do.
Yeah, it's in this case. I mean, Turgeon got browbeat, justifiably so. Turgeon also was never on an international team again. Ever. He never represented Canada again. And let's put that in perspective of what Team Canada is. Not so much anymore, but still. So in the 90s, like late 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, your best hockey players, chances are out of at least half of the top 10 would be Canadian. Always.
Yeah.
So if you weren't good enough or asked to be part of Team Canada at some point in time, so this would have included like the 91 Canada Cup, the 96 World Cup of Hockey. He didn't play on some good teams either. So he would have been eligible for some World Hockey Championships. Never played on any of them. Never. I was trying to look to see if he was officially blacklisted, but at the same time, well, I couldn't find anything to say that said that. But he was also not that player that, oh my God, I can't believe we're leaving off Turgeon. He was never that guy. He's only been nominated for, or not nominated, he's only received Hart Trophy voting once. And that was the season he got 132 points. And he only did 100 points twice, which for his era,
isn't a huge number.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, I'll put it this way. Like, he's got like way more points than Jerome Iginla. There's not going to be one person who'll ever say that Turgeon's a better player than Iginla. No one. Because just different time. So was Pierre Turgeon, other than that one year, ever considered even the top in the top 10 in the hockey? No, he wasn't. Is he a really good compiler? Yeah. Was he a skill player worth having? He's like, to me, like Jack Eichel in a way. I don't know that Eichel makes you better, but he's a type of Eichel makes you better if you've got the right team around him that opens him up.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I guess.
Yeah. So Turgeon for me is a real head scratcher, only because I don't even know if this is to send a message or if they're just looking at pure numbers. I don't know what they were thinking.
They're thinking he's a top guy on points who's not in.
That's the elevator pitch. He's got over 1,300 points, and nobody remembers any of them.
I mean, the number one memory I have of his hockey career is scoring in 93 playoffs against the Capitals as an Islander to win the series, and the Dale Hunter cheap shotting him from behind, which led to Hunter getting the biggest suspension at that time in league history in what was, I believe, Gary Bettman's first real act as commissioner.
20 games, I believe.
21.
21. Okay, yeah.
Full quarter of the season.
Yeah. And had there been text messaging then, he probably would have got a lot of kudos. I don't know.
Maybe, maybe
So
not
it,
that far from there. So,
all right. So let's look at these guys. Uh, who does this help? Because I will
well, so,
argue.
so let me specify it this way. Pierre Turgeon is 34th on the all-time list. The next guy not in who's eligible for the Hall is going back. The guy you said is never getting in, Jeremy Roenick. Now holds the title for most points for someone eligible who's not in the Hall.
And he'll never get in unless a mindset sort of changes.
He has a intense case of Schilling's disease.
In a far more minor capacity, but yes.
I mean, in minor capacity, but in terms of this, yeah,
That's all
what
you
it is.
need in
I'm not,
hockey,
yeah,
or for this institution. And yeah, some people might be listening and say, well, the NHL just sort of like went back on Pride Night, whatever. Okay, that's the NHL and the Hockey Hall of Fame are not exclusive to each other.
true.
So that's
So,
neither here nor there.
so then we're excluding Roenick, who's 47th. Number 49 and 50 are not in, who are Bernie Nichols and Vinny Damphus.
I honestly can't figure this out. I honestly think, and for regular viewers slash listeners, usually I have an elevator up, elevator down. I'm combining it here because there was no set standout for that. Does this hurt Richter? Because they just did a whole goalie glut. So now, okay, now Richter's obviously the best goalie left. Well, maybe, unless you're on Team Cujo, and I can understand that case. I even heard some rumblings.
I can understand Team Richter and Team Cujo. I get them both.
Right, but they just did that. So are they going to now focus elsewhere? That's because I'm trying to understand their point of view, and I don't get it. The only thing I can think of how they think is they don't want to be told what to think. It's like when Pat Burns was dying, and okay, he's not going to be around much longer. He's got a Hall of Fame case. Let him enjoy it. And they did it the year after he died, or 2 years after he died. Like, thanks.
Yeah.
So is it because Mogilny gets the name to get the most press?
Yeah, it's not different in any other sport though, or any other hall. Like Linda Ronstadt only got in when she lost her voice. Donna Summerlin got in after she died. Ron Santo was on record for years saying, "You're gonna put me in as soon as I die. I know it." And guess what happened?
That's what they did.
Here, right? Like it happens all the time. I mean, it's not specific to them, but I mean, just looking at of people not in the Hall at this point in terms of points on the skater side of stuff, we have Roenick, Nichols, Damphus, Rod Brindamore, who's an interesting case anyway because he's been a very good general manager, so you can make an argument for Brindamore on both sides. Moving down here, Teo Fleury, who you already briefly discussed.
Yeah.
Dave Taylor, who's an interesting one, probably has a pretty good argument. Keith Tkachuk, Ray Whitney. Now we're getting to Pat Verbeek area of the world. So
yeah,
Pat Verbeek, Bobby Smith, Doug Waite, then Alex Mogilny, who's tied at 83rd with Nick Backstrom at the moment.
Yeah, but Mogilny had that monster year, also the international stuff, and that's the one I think the people, myself included, want the most. Mogilny was at number one at one point on this. I obviously that's number one on the non Hall of Fame hockey list, which I'll be working on eventually. I'm spread a little thin, my friend. I wish it actually worked in my body as opposed to just my intellect.
Yeah. So I'm just looking. Still, Alex Kovalev is never getting in either. Do you think?
No, he's not. With Botterill's got to be next, unless they want to go with Julie Chu, and I don't have a problem with that.
Okay. And then
those two are getting.
What we're doing with. Yeah. So it's just a matter of order more than anything else.
Yes, it's just a matter of who gets it first between those two.
I'm just looking.
Or they'll throw in another weird wild card with some Finnish woman we never heard of.
Possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about let's just go with the rest of them who have at least 1,000 points are eligible.
Yeah.
Patrick
Mm,
Eliash,
mm.
Brian Bellows, the aforementioned Dale Hunter has 1,020 points.
Only put. Oh, well, here's the only. Here's a little tidbit for you. What else does he have 1,000 of?
Penalty minutes.
That's right. Only one.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Getzlaff isn't eligible. He retired last year. Steve Larmer and Brian Prop. And
I
that's
like
your list.
Larmer a lot. Brian Prop. I told you what happened about 2 years ago, right?
I think so. Remind me.
Yeah, that was like because I got sent a Facebook message, and I'm not that active on the Facebook page, and it was like, why haven't you put Brian Prop in the Hockey Hall of Fame? Well, I don't have that ability. I just write about it. Oh, okay.
Mhm.
Do you think he'll ever get in? Probably not. Well, you're an asshole for not putting him in. I don't put him in. I'm not on that committee. Sorry, I just had
It's fine.
yeah,
This
just
is funny.
the ability of comprehension from some people. I find
Mhm.
fascinating. Actually, that whole
Yeah.
event just woke up this one. So Winnie's here,
Okay.
and that's just for the viewers. That's Winnie the Mini Dachshund. Hey, Winnie.
So yeah, I'm looking at everybody here. I mean, there's some further down that I wouldn't surprise you if Pavel Datsyuk got in at some point, but again, he's Russian, so we'll see about that.
Well, I mean,
Vinny Cavalier.
maybe with this morning's news, I mean that could end stuff, and then everything's all right in the world again. I mean, it's not like when I was listening to the sports radio, they said, "Well, there's a picture of McGillney standing there next to Putin." Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah, exactly. And
I mean,
uh,
a Russian hero standing next to the leader of Russia.
I,
I mean, it's one of those things that if Putin asks to take a picture with you and you
mhm.
say no, no one ever takes a picture of you again.
That's also true. I mean, it's like when Kathy Griffin did the severed head of Trump, and then people would respond, "Well, there's a picture of her golfing with Trump." Well, okay, I'm not throwing my personal politics. I don't. It's not important, but people can change their minds, and just because you're in a picture with them doesn't necessarily mean you can make every possible association.
Correct.
Now, you can make the
So,
association that Kathy Griffin is just really annoying. Okay, I'm doing that. I think.
let's have Kathy Griffin. We still got two more people to talk about for the Hockey Hall. Two people,
Okay. We're that.
two
I,
buildings
I
very
like
deserving.
I like your forced segue, but we'll run with it.
Yeah, two very deserving buildings.
Oh yeah,
So
Hitchcock. So now that sort of completes, I think, the 1999 Dallas Stars. I know you like closing circles.
yeah,
Uh,
there are still more Dallas Stars we can put in from '99. The only team that ever existed. I'm sure if we work hard enough, we can find a couple.
we probably could, but Ken Hitchcock, a very successful coach. I think he's fourth all time
Fourth.
in wins. Fourth.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean, if you're fourth all time in wins, you're in. There's no argument for me.
that shouldn't be. So and he's in. So congratulations to him.
And he's coached to a Stanley Cup. So
Yeah, yeah. And someone with two rings, Pierre Lacroix.
the
The
late great.
architect of the Avalanche. I don't want to say dynasty, but not 96 2001 Stanley Cup champions. That's his team. He built it. Sadly, this is a posthumous induction, but I don't think anyone looking at that can't. I was trying to see if he was part of the. I don't think he was part of that when they made that brilliant Lindros deal. Because I think that was the year before. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
it's possible.
It wasn't in his write-ups, but he might have been part of the organization in some capacity, which is really the deal that made them champions eventually. But yes,
Lacroix, by the way, died of COVID back in 2020.
yeah,
So
yeah. So unfortunately, so he obviously will not be there. I kept thinking it was Andre. That's a player. He used to play in Quebec. I don't know.
yeah.
So when I wrote this all out, I had to look back. What did I get wrong? But yeah, that's what I got wrong. But either way, it's a full class. We'll have a lot more fun debating this in the future. Probably next year we'll do that committee that I didn't do this year. Just again, I'm stretched out really thin, which is a good time to sort of like plug, just usually plug at the end, but I'm going to plug this now. I've got about 25 people now, it looks like, for our mock pro football committee. I just want to get it to 30, or I may not. Either way, invites are going to go, or sorry, the first ballot's going to go out to people on Friday. I'm just not like whatever I got, I got.
Mhm.
And it's not too late to be a part of it. And even if it starts, you can still always add on to it. All we ask is that you know your football, and if you don't know your football history, research it. It's not,
Fair.
it's not going to be a whole lot of time. It's not going to be very time consuming for people, but it should be a lot of fun if this is something that you're into, like we are.
I already have my spreadsheet fingers ready to go.
Nice. So with that, I guess we go to the death march. Who did we lose this week?
And I apologize, it's a little out of order because my computer collapsed the entire internet. And so all my tabs are open or screwed up. So I'm going to try and do the best I can to stay on topic, but we're going to maybe bouncing around a little bit. I was trying to pay attention to you rather than rearranging things.
Wow, no one ever pays attention to me.
I know, I just thought you'd be touched. So we did lose somebody to the Beige Mistress. Gabriela Sapo-Fekete, Hungarian volleyball player from the 76 and 80 Olympics, passed away at the age of 68.
Mm.
We were talking a little bit about world leaders earlier. I missed this last week. Silvio Berlusconi died.
Who's that?
No, you don't know Berlusconi? He was one of the big guy from Italy for on and off for the last 2 decades. Berlusconi was media tycoon, billionaire, 4-time prime minister of Italy. But he passed away last week. Somehow missed it at the age of, how old was he? My goodness, 86. So, also passing away, interestingly, at the age of 89, Donald Triplett, who is the first person ever to be diagnosed with being autistic.
Oh, okay.
So, he diagnosed in, I don't know what year it was, but he was, had some savant abilities, ability to name any musical note he heard, as to what pitch it was, and rapid mental multiplication. He was the first person diagnosed autistic, actually, in 1938. There you go. There was the first autism case.
The second one was Raymond Babbitt.
No, I think Lenny Smalls came first, and then Raymond Babbitt.
Oh, okay.
So, and then Cameron Poe. Just kidding. That was Nick Cage's character from Con Air. Why couldn't you put the bunny in the box? Sorry. So Donald Triplett was 89, passing away. An actor, very good actor, Frederick Forrest. Did you ever see Apocalypse Now?
I have a long time ago, but yes.
Chef from Apocalypse Now. He
Okay.
also was in Conversation, Hammett, the whole bunch of other things. He won a Golden Globe for most promising newcomer in When the Legends Die in 1972. But he passed away at the age of 86. There's a whole bunch of stuff on the interwebs today about it because people just found out about it today. And there was one other of these people I wanted to put on here. Hold on. Oh my goodness, this computer is having a bad day, my friend. Daniel Ellsberg, that's the guy. So Daniel Ellsberg, the guy who is known for releasing the Pentagon Papers, which is the secret plans into the U.S.'s involvement in the Vietnam War, passed away at the age of 92. So there you go. So another one of those people from history. In the world of music, if this will load, Teresa Taylor, also known as Teresa Nervosa, the drummer for the Butthole Surfers, passed away with complications of lung disease at the age of 60. So she also did some acting around there as well. But Yeah, so she was with them from 84 through I think '03. So yeah, she was diagnosed in November 2020 of having end stage lung disease. And she
Man,
said
it
that
makes me feel so old. I remember like a Pepper as a kid, right? Or at least not, I guess I wasn't a kid, but 60? Wow.
we, we were all kids then, man. Yeah. So she was 60. Um Big Pokey, the rapper, passed away on stage at
Ooh,
the age of 48 in Beaumont, Texas. Um, so he was a member of associated with Chopped and Screwed Music. One of the original members of Screwed Up Click. Started early '90s with DJ Screw down in Texas. But yeah, he collapsed on stage in Beaumont and then died. So
that's not
48. Yeah, young man.
yeah.
Um, there's one more here. I apologize. Everything is all over. Max Morath, known as Mr. Ragtime, one of the few people keeping ragtime music alive. I actually saw him once.
Hmm.
Passed away at the age of 96. He was actor from 1941 through 2023. That is a long freaking time.
That is a very long time.
Released his first album in 1955, his last album in 2015, so 60 years apart.
I'm
Just one of the legends of piano, particularly the honky tonk, ragtime
yeah.
style.
Gonna listen to
Uh,
some of that, I think, maybe later today. That sounds pretty cool.
yeah, if you can find him, Max Marath is incredible, like absolutely incredible. I saw him. How old was I? 15, probably. And I can't remember where I saw him. I know I saw him with my parents. But I can't remember where it was. But yeah, he passed away at the age of 96. I think that's it for no one more musician. There we go. John Waddington, the guitarist for the pop group, the English electronic rock group, passed away at the age of 63. I don't know of what, but that was the age I was given. As for football, we lost Bryson Manor, defensive end for the Broncos mostly, and 1 year for the Buccaneers. Played 8 years for the Broncos in the late '70s, early '80s. He passed away at the age of 70 on those teams with Randy Gradishar. Uh, so I did one of the defensive ends on basically Gradishar's defenses. Um, Hopefully Gradishar gets in the Hall this year. It would be fantastic. I think we're all hoping for that. That's coming up in August, September. The seniors.
Yeah, probably next month. Actually, now is also a good time to say that we're going to be doing another little senior committee, not committee, discussion.
Oh, cool. Let
So
me know that.
clear up a week Tuesday.
A week from Tuesday.
Yeah,
So the third.
yeah. Let's try the. We're gonna try for the third.
I will be in Iowa. I will not be able to do it. Just
Okay.
saying. But a week from Tuesday is the 4th of July.
Ah, well then, never mind. I'm not doing it that day.
All right, we can figure it out. I'll still be in Iowa. Okay,
All
but
right. Well, the 4th of July, and then we owe you one. Meaning
all
of
right.
the
Sounds.
5th.
Also passing away, Clark Hagens, defender for those very good Steelers teams of uh, the early 2000s. Played the Steelers 2000, 2007, Cardinals 2008 to 2011, Niners in 2012. Member of the Colorado State University Athletics Hall of Fame, Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl extra large of Super Bowl 40. That is the one he still has the single worst call in the history of the football, in my opinion. Um, I bring it up all the time, but Matt Hasselbeck threw an interception, made the tackle, and was called for a chop block. Um, so, uh, yeah, but he passed away. I don't know from what. Let's say it just said he passed away at the age of 46. So, very involved in ending child abuse within in the community. Was supported blackout child abuse campaign. And did a whole bunch of things along those lines. So he was doing a lot of stuff uh, with the community at the time he passed away. Also passing away, Charlie Scales, running back for the Steelers, Browns, Falcons, and one season with the Montreal Alouettes. Passed away at the age of 85. I have one other football player, but he's the biggest name, so I'll come back to him in a second. From baseball, we lost George Frazier. Do you remember George Frazier, the relief pitcher?
What team do you play for?
Cardinals, Yankees, Indians, Cubs, and Twins. His last game was the 87 World Series for the
Nah,
Twins.
doesn't ring a bell.
But he actually set the record for most losses in a World Series back in 1981 with the Yankees.
Oh,
He lost 3 games in the 81 World Series.
okay.
But I mean, pitched for quite a while. He was in the league, 11 years. But he passed, mostly a setup reliever, originally from Springfield, Massachusetts. He passed away at the age of 68. Also passing away, Dick Hall, right-handed pitcher from 52 through 71, mostly with the Pirates and Orioles. Actually a member of the Orioles Hall of Fame, two-time World Series champ in 66 with the Orioles. He went to the Phillies for a couple years, came back and won with them again in 70. But he passed away at the age of 92. Jim Palmer said he learned most of his pitching from working with Hall and said that he was one of the greatest control pitchers ever. If Jim Palmer says something nice about you, it's pretty good. So
Jim Palmer, I'm still traumatized by his underwear commercials in the early 80s. I don't know why.
Don't know what to say. I don't want to limit.
I don't know. That might be something that a psychiatrist can analyze, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't want to mental image, so I'm moving on.
Okay, would you ever see the ones with Pete Rose? Those are really traumatizing.
No, I was too busy in the early 80s worrying about what was going on with the Secret of Nim and the Return to Oz. Those are the things.
To be fair, the Pete Rose ones I saw much later. Just someone was ragging on him, and then just posted it like, ugh.
Okay, moving on for the third time. Ray Wheatley, Australian Hall of Fame, Australian Boxing Hall of Fame official and Golden Gloves boxing champion, passed away at the age of 74. He was, where is he in his career? He was a commentator, a fighter, and an official. So, and a member of the Golden Gloves group. Jim Brandenburg also passed away, member of the Wyoming Hall of Fame. Coach University of Wyoming, brought them to the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament, also runner-up in the NIT one season. He passed away at the age of 87, also coached at San Diego State. And finally, the biggest name who passed away, although he passed away last week, although it hadn't been announced yet, member of the 60s All-Decade team, Bob Brown, the offensive lineman, mainly for the Eagles, also the Rams and Raiders, passed away at the age of 81. You have anything to say about Bob Brown?
No, it's a really good player. I'm kind of glad in a way that this is a light week, because there wasn't as many. But no, I don't have a whole lot of things with Bob Brown. That was a little before my time, and there wasn't a whole lot of write-ups about him when he passed away either.
I know, that was why I missed it the first time. So he's nicknamed the Boomer, 5-time first-team All-Pro, 4-time second-team All-Pro. So that's 9 years that he was an All-Pro, which is pretty good. Yeah. 6-time Pro Bowler, member of the 60s All-Decade team, member of the Eagles Hall of Fame, first team All-Big 8 in 63, unanimous All-American 63, and his number 64 is retired at Nebraska, which means you're a pretty good player if you get your number retired at Nebraska.
Nebraska, exactly, yeah. Yeah, actually, I was surprised when you were doing that other obituary. I didn't know that Wyoming ever made the final 16 or Sweet 16.
Yeah. So Bob Brown, member of the College Football Hall of Fame in 93, Pro Football Hall of Fame in 2004. Passed away at the age of 81. So
Eagles were my cousin Rob's favorite team. That's why I was in Toronto. There
I'm
was some,
sorry.
yeah, because they had a it was a celebration of life. What I went down for just a few days ago, or actually I just got back from it yesterday. Uh, yeah, became an Eagles fan with his son. He decided he was going to get all in the NFL. They picked a team, and that was the team they picked. Was the Eagles. So they managed to go to a couple games there. And I remember when I was a kid, right? Because they how like in the '80s, a lot of girls had glamour shots.
Yeah,
The
and
Canadian male,
a lot of boys had laser beams behind them.
well, the Canadian male version was skating with in your hockey jersey and then just doing that where everything sort of sprays across. Like like as you're sort of like stopping. And so like he had that shot. So when I was a little kid, it's like my cousin's going to the NHL. So I don't know any different.
Okay.
Yeah, but and he would have loved it too because four people got completely wasted at the celebration of life, and my cousin loved his booze. I was not one of the four. I was a driver that day, so
Good for you.
it was
Good
good.
for you.
It was no, it was. It was actually something that if if when I pass away, I hope that's sort of what happens to me. Please get drunk in my honor. That will be the biggest thing you can do for me. I guess we're moving on, but I realize there's two things we forgot to mention. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what's the difference between an Irish wedding and an Irish funeral?
More dead person?
One less person drinking.
Okay. There you go. I realize there's like two Hall of Fame related things we didn't mention that I wanted to. I just went so far into the hockey hall that I forgot other things. Something interesting happened last week. David Freese declined
Oh yeah,
his
that's right.
Cardinals Hall of Fame induction. And I was trying to see if I could figure out why. He doesn't seem to have any animosity towards the Cardinals. There doesn't seem to be any story that I could dig up. It just, am I missing something other than somebody who's just too humble and just thinks he's not worthy enough? Is it
Yeah,
that
I mean
simple?
well, that's what he said. That's what it comes down to. That he respects all the people in there, and he doesn't think he's good enough to do that.
But it's a
So
fan voted, and I respect his decision on that, but it is a fan voted thing. He is a playoff hero. Did he have a better career than some others? No, but he had it when it counts. And realistically, well, I mean that if he wants to turn it down, it's his right to turn it down. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen anyone turn something down because they were humble. I've seen people
mm,
humbled by it.
hmm
There's got to be somebody who's done this before. I just can't think of who that might be.
I can't think of one either.
Okay, but if this is the case, and it is just as cut and dry as he says, that's a class move. I mean, that's an era where you expect everyone to have egos, not just athletes, just people in general. And for you not to have one, I'm kind of in awe by this.
I mean, do they vote him in again next time? Like, what happens if he gets voted in again?
Well, maybe he's already asked them not to put him on the ballot.
I guess that's possible.
He might not have even might have got on the ballot, just not thought he was ever going to get selected. I mean,
Mm.
yeah, we role players sometimes just make it good. That's why if we ever do a playoff Hall of Fame, hey David, you'll have to accept it because we don't actually do ceremonies.
There you go.
Yeah. The other Hall of Fame related news comes from college football. I don't know if you saw this. Les Miles, former head coach of LSU and national champion in 2007, had 3 years of wins vacated because one of his offensive linemen took inappropriate bribes, which I'm sure never happened to any other player in the entire college football, but whatever. Long story short, and why I bring this up is his record now officially dips below 600, and you have to have a 600 record to be College Football Hall of Fame
Oh
eligible.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, I saw the headline of that, but I didn't actually see it.
Yeah, so I don't know that I have any comment other than I'm sure he's not the only college football Hall of Fame coach to have presided over inappropriate bribes.
Oh, are
But
you kidding? Are you kidding? Like Trent Dilfer was just on saying that if anyone stole any of his players from UAB from Big Five conference, there are going to be consequences to pay. So I'm sure that Trent Dilfer, international, is threatening everybody. I mean, so
I mean, I find the whole thing sort of, come on. I mean, like we especially now that we sort of like realize that the people can actually make money off their own likeness now in the NCAA.
mhm.
This feels so. I don't know. What's the word I'm looking for? It feels like like punishing somebody for pot now that they did in
Mhm.
2015. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm not a. I love college football, even though that's the I shouldn't, but we've talked about that before. That and the Olympics, those are two things that I feel guilty every time I watch it, and I gotta take a bath after. But I don't know. It's doesn't sound right to me, but not for me to worry about that much. I don't really have that much investment in LSU football.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
don't care about college football. It's dirty as all heck. And
Yeah.
I mean, we're about to go to a crazy alignment on all of these leagues, which is going to
Mhm.
be my ugly at some point, because we're going to end up with four leagues. ACC is going to go, Pac-12, um, schools like Boston College, Iowa State, Oregon State, probably going to get just left behind. And we're just going to have four leagues, and it's going to be crazy.
And the
So
sad thing is, once we get to the four leagues that you're describing, it won't be how far down the road does it get to three leagues? And then
yeah, and
two.
then two, and then just the champions. I mean, essentially, they're trying to do what they were trying to do in soccer.
Mhm.
You just have a top league, and it's going to be you want some backroom deals in college sports.
Right.
The backroom deals to get in that group of 16 or 20 or whatever it is going to be insane. You're going to have like, I'm just picking a school that's possibly going to be left out. You're going to have like a Oklahoma or a Penn State, or like one of those ones you think are or Notre Dame, one of those ones you think are like way at the top, who are just not going to be in there when you because you get to
Mhm.
16 or 20, you're like, wait a second, Oklahoma? Yeah, Oklahoma's probably like 18. We do
Yeah.
like everybody,
And then
and then
conversely, you'll have a team like I guess that version of Everton. Wasn't Everton part of that going to be part of that Super League? Or was it Tottenham? What was that?
uh,
What was the
it was
EPL
it was
team that Tottenham? Okay,
it
which
was
sort
Tottenham.
of felt like an outlier a bit. So then you probably have like I
Yes,
don't know, like Texas Tech
yeah.
that you know that somehow gets
Yeah,
bought.
because or it's going to be Baylor because like all the governors of Texas go to Baylor, and
There you go,
so
Baylor. That's a
Baylor's
better example.
Baylor's going to be the team that's going
To
to
be
make
fair,
sure
Baylor's
if
been
you're going to get Texas, you have to take Baylor with them.
yeah. Well, Baylor's been half decent for a while now, but yeah.
Oh, they have, but if you're doing a league of the top 20 teams in the history of college football, no offense to Baylor, they're not there.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
but
West
and
Virginia won't be able to buy their way in.
well, I mean, I guess that could be my ugly. So, all right, you
Okay,
just gave me my ugly. We'll go to there. So let's go to the bad, the ugly, the good, the
of sorts.
mediocre, the things.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll transition into the ugly. Um, and you
Okay.
brought up you brought up West Virginia, but
I had
but
no idea I was setting you up with a softball there, buddy.
yeah, well, I hadn't decided what my ugly was going to be. There are
Yeah.
several things, and it's just a very ugly way to end a career for Bob Huggins.
Uh,
Um, Huggins is one of the great college basketball coaches of all time, although his teams have historically graduated. He at University of Cincinnati, he graduated no players in 7 years at one point. He had a graduation rate of zero, right? So he was the coach. He was not the person making sure they went to class. Um, but he was in trouble about a month ago for some fairly racist things he said,
mhm.
and they were trying to dock him some money from that because of what he said. He was then just arrested for passing out in the middle of an intersection while drunk during the daytime. So police pulled him over, got him out of the car. He blew twice the legal limit and has decided to step down, or was asked to step down, and took it. West Virginia. I think this is the end of his career.
Oh yeah.
I think at this point, there's very few people who are going to touch him. Again, one of the great coaches in college basketball, particularly over the last 25, 30 years, but just a very, very sad and ugly way to end it.
It is. And sadly, I think when you're that successful, even when you get much older, you reach a level. I think, especially if you're a college coach, be it in football and basketball in a major program. And we kind of saw it, I think a lot of us saw it for the first time, at least in my generation, with Bob Knight. You feel, I don't want to say entitled, but untouchable.
Yeah, he 100% felt untouchable.
Yeah. Where things that you will say, think, because he's probably, if Bob Knight, sorry, if Bob Huggins did this isn't the first time he drove drunk in his life. Maybe not even the first time. Like, he's probably done it how many times? I mean, I remember when I was talking to, or when I wrote the book for Chavo, right? Chavo Guerrero Sr., right? He was telling me about a guy named Wahoo McDaniel, who was a former New York Jet, became a very, very popular wrestler. And then he kept a bunch of 8x10s of just himself for when he got pulled over. And he would just sign that. That's like, all right, Wahoo, don't do it again.
Wow.
And Bob Huggins is not, well, was Wahoo still alive? I don't know. But probably a bit of that same mindset. You know, especially if you're in a smaller place like West Virginia, where it's all mountaineers all the time. You know, just somebody who obviously is a great intellect for basketball. Again, maybe not a great leader of saying, hey, maybe go to class. But, you know, you don't hear Bob Huggins stories of what an asshole or what a race. Yeah, he said something racially charged. I don't know if that was his age, lack of common sense, but whatever. But you see this with a lot of people just because they are untouchable. And he had been untouchable for a long, long time. Got away with it. How many times? I'm sure.
Yeah.
And just,
I mean, there are all sorts of examples throughout sports history, and particularly in college ranks with this. You brought up Bob Knight. Right. I mean, I can't imagine Paterno's surprise at the end of his career that they actually cared about some kid from a whole bunch of years ago.
Exactly. To a lesser degree, crap. What's the name of that coach who got sacked from Florida? Not Tortorella.
Urban Meyer?
No. For the
Meyer?
Blackhawks.
Oh, Joe Quenneville?
Thank you. You know, so probably one of those things, like, no one's going to give a shit. Just sweep it under the rug. You know, just win.
It'll be interesting with if Jonathan Toews is done. It'll be interesting to see what that does for his career. Captain of 3-time Stanley Cup champions, but also the captain of that.
It is interesting because no, but it is because we just talked about how the Hockey Hall of Fame doesn't want to touch any of this stuff in terms of anything that could be slightly controversial. But I think with the thing with Toews, it doesn't. You're in Chicago, so it's talked about a lot more.
Yeah.
Around here.
Yeah. Well,
you know what I mean. So like,
and it's not like there's going to be any public debate when it comes up because we're never going to know who the nominees are. So there we go.
All right.
Yeah. Anyway, so let's go to the bad next. I know you didn't get a chance to watch it because what was going on. We had the NBA draft on Thursday night. The NFL draft, and this was brought up, I think, by Russillo, saying that a few years ago the NFL draft was like come up with some sob story. So every time somebody got drafted, we could do some terrible sob story about everybody. It got to the point of like, all right, come on, let's just figure out what this has to do with stuff. It kind of felt like the NBA draft is the opposite of this, of that. Like, let's see exactly what this means to you. The parents were there, the dads, moms were sitting on the couch with the players, are going through everything, and that was nice. But there was so little talk about basketball. Like, we had guys who were expected to go in the top 5 who fell to number 20. Like, why? Nobody ever talked about it, right? We had situations in which I still was unsure at the end of the night who the Celtics drafted, because they never told us. So the Celtics, just for example, a 25th pick. We'll get to how they got the 25th pick in a second. So they have the 25th pick and they draft somebody, and at first it's coming right out of commercial because 24th pick happens when the Omax went, who's the guy I wanted for the Celtics. 25th pick coming out of the commercial, the pick is made, and they say, hey, he'll be great in Motown. I'm like, Boston's not Motown. What the hell are you talking about? He'd been traded to Detroit. They never told us. Not only been traded to Detroit, he was drafted by Memphis via Boston for Detroit. So he had to go out there with a Memphis hat on, which is 2 teams removed from the team where he actually was going to. Like, it was insane. The Celtics ended up with 31, which they traded for 34 and 38. 34, they traded again for another pick. They ended up picking at 38. I think they end up picking at 38 because they also had 39, which I think got traded.
So the broadcast was just awful, huh?
Oh God, it was like you had the second round, like so many trades were happening, and you had no freaking idea. And one of my favorite parts was Omax again got traded, and they had the new general manager or the vice commissioner come up. He does the second round, and he leads off. He goes, "We have a trade. The Sacramento Kings have traded Omax, whatever, and nothing else. Didn't tell us who they traded him to. Didn't tell him who they traded him for. Just there's been a trade. This guy's been traded. Okay." And then with the next pick in the draft, the Memphis Grizzlies select this guy. Or not the Memphis Grizzlies. It was the Boston Celtics select this guy, and then he got traded right away. It's just like, it's a freaking mess. There's no reason. I know trades aren't official until July 6th, which is why they put this whole thing up for simplicity's sake. But this is not simple. It's dumb. It's super duper dumb. Make it so we have some idea what is going on and who is going where.
I get the idea, and again, I didn't watch it. I might now, when I'm sure I can find it online in some capacity to watch the whole thing. I get the whole point of trying to tell a story. The creator in me gets that, but you still have to thread that line where you're telling a story to the people who actually want to know what's going on for their NBA team next year. You know, Howard Cosell was so, I mean, he's my all-time favorite analyst. I know a lot of people will disagree with that, but Cosell always talked about having to sort of tell a story that made sense to people who wouldn't normally watch, but then do so without sort of taking away from your hardcore audience that lives and breathes this sport. And for a draft, it doesn't seem that hard.
It's not. There are only 2 freaking rounds, and there were 2 picks that were forfeited for tampering. So there are only 58 picks in this whole thing instead of 60.
When he walked up the Memphis hat, did he suddenly feel the need to pull out a gun and flash on Instagram?
Well, that won't be happening anymore because of my good. We'll get to in a second. So,
all right, well, let's get to. Are we ready for the good?
Well, that's fine. The NBA draft is so bad, and ESPN did it badly. Although they did it better than ABC did, mainly because Stephen A. Smith wasn't involved. But anyway,
you know what I just realized? Your bad isn't much different than my smorgasbord of shit.
Generally true. I do it differently without as much swearing or WNBA.
I haven't mentioned it today.
I know. Good for you. Let me go to my good. This is where I want to end. So the Celtics made a trade right the day before the draft on Wednesday. And the trade was originally going to be, we're going to end up with Kristaps Porzingis, who's a great person for the Celtics and what we need to do. And as Malcolm Brogdon was going to go to the Clippers, and a whole bunch of other stuff was going to move around. We're going to end up with Porzingis. that fell apart because apparently I've heard a couple of things, but the one that seems the most likely is that the Clippers couldn't get the medical records in time because this had to be done by midnight on Wednesday.
Mm.
Porzingis either had to opt in or not by the end of Wednesday. So when they didn't have the medical records they wanted on the arm that I just forgot his name. Uh,
Porzingis?
what?
Brogdon?
Brogdon, sorry,
Yeah.
that Brogdon injured during the playoffs. They couldn't get that in time. They decided to back out because of Brogdon's injury history anyway, right? So he didn't get traded, but the Celtics really wanted Porzingis. So they made a move that they could have made at any point in the last 6 years. And that is they traded Marcus Smart to Memphis. They got back the best player in the draft and in the trade. And they ended up with 2 first-round draft picks out of it as well. Right. So they got the 25th pick this year and they got Golden State's pick next year out of this. So they ended up with the only 2 first-round draft picks that are traded and the best player in the trade. Tyus Jones ended up going from Memphis to Washington. Our second-round pick, number 35, went to Washington as well. Yeah, by the way, between Wednesday and Thursday, the Celtics owned picks number 31, 32, 31, 34, 35, 37, and 38 and 39 at one point or another, and only drafted one of those picks. Just in case you wondered why I was confused. But as part of this, that means that the guy who's been with the team the longest, Marcus Smart, a guy who we have gone through all the good times and the bad with, in very many ways, the heart and soul of the team, got traded away to Memphis. Now, I will be honest with you. Is this history repeating itself? We had a guy named Tony Allen, who used to play for Oklahoma State, who was drafted in the first round with the 6th pick, played with the Celtics through age 29, and ended up going to Memphis and having a very long career and actually got his number retired there. We now have a player who at age 29 played for the Celtics' entire career from Oklahoma State, drafted with the 6th pick, who is now going to Memphis to finish hopefully the end of his career. Marcus Smart is a great teammate. Did he make dumb decisions every once in a while? Yes. But the number of great things he did more than balanced out those dumb decisions. There were so many times he took a shot like, no, yes, and it went in, right?
Yep.
But this Celtics team has made 5 of the last 6 Eastern Conference Finals, only gotten through once. And then they lost to Golden State in the finals there. Something needed to be shaken up. I did not understand the argument that they were going to trade Jaylen Brown. It does not make any sense to me why you trade. If you have 2 of the top 20 players in the league, why would you trade one of them? It doesn't make any sense, right? So it's unfortunate. I'd much rather have had Brogdon go. No offense to Brogdon, who is a good player, but he's not as important to the team chemistry as Smart is. And Smart, I was trying to get this open, but my computer is freezing things. But Smart leads as one of the more polarizing figures in the history of the team because of people who didn't like them, depending on the situation. But just somebody who I have greatly appreciated his entire time. His clowning of James Harden back in 2017 when Harden was still at the Rockets is still one of my favorite moments in Celtics history, where he forced Harden into a 5-second call at the end of the game. But Smart actually ends up 25th if he never comes back on the Celtics all-time scoring list.
Oh.
He's between, you ready who he's between? Number 26 is Ray Allen. Number 25 is Kevin Garnett. Or 24. So he's between Garnett and Allen on the Celtics all-time scoring list.
That's pretty nice.
I do not think anyone should wear number 36 again for the Celtics.
Where's Taco Fall?
I could tell you. Hold on.
Really?
I have a spreadsheet. He's number 351, technically tied for 350th with Cecil Hankins, who played 1 season for the Celtics in 1948. I love spreadsheets, my friend.
I was not ready for an answer on that.
Oh, yeah. The Celtics have had, hold on. The Celtics have had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players who have suited up for them without ever scoring a point, including CJ Miles and Darko Milicic. So there you go.
Yeah.
Spreadsheets are fantastic.
I did
But
a
I mean,
deep dive.
just
Oh, God.
yeah.
I was just saying I did a deep dive once. Like I couldn't sleep, and I don't know how I wound up. It was like 3 YouTube videos in a row on the rise and fall, or really the fall of Darko Milicic.
Mm, yeah.
Apparently, I don't know if this is true or not, but a buddy told me this. This may or may not be true. That Darko's buddies were or were Jokic's brothers,
Okay.
and sort of made sure that Nikola wouldn't fall in that trap.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true or not, but then after watching Denver win the whole thing, and you see sort of his hanger-on brothers who look like they were older and might party a lot. Yeah, maybe
Possible.
it's one of those stories that I've got nothing to base it on other than, well, it sounds like it could be true.
Seems plausible.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, but Smart, like I said, I don't think anyone should ever wear number 36 again, which isn't that hard. Only 2 people have ever worn 36 for the Celtics. I know this off the top of my head without a spreadsheet.
Okay.
You know who the first player to wear number 36 for the Celtics was?
Scalabrini.
Shaq.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Shaq was the only player ever before to wear 36. But I don't think anyone else should wear it again. He's that important. I know they never won a title with him. They did make the finals. But he was here 8 years. They made the playoffs all 8 years. He was in the Eastern Conference Finals 5 times. He's played 108 playoff games in his career, and he's not 30 yet.
Well, it's a nice tribute. I like it when we sort of like give tributes to people who are now former members of our teams that of our fandom. So
when he comes back, when Memphis comes back to play in Boston, he's going to get a massive standing ovation. I mean, absolutely incredible. It wouldn't surprise me. The entire stadium just starts chanting Marcus over and over again. He is a polarizing but beloved figure. I understand the trade. Like, you got 2 first-rounders and the best player in the trade for your, call him probably your 5th best player. But it still kind of hurts a little bit. And I will say Memphis has legitimately been trying to get Marcus Smart for 6 years. Everyone was like, Marcus is more important to the Celtics than he is to any other team. The only other team who I felt wanted him that badly was Memphis. He is born to be a Grizzly. Like, he's just the grinder, put everything in the line, super competitive type guy that the Grizzlies just have over and over and over again. And if there's anyone in the league who could tell John Morant to stop being an idiot, it's Marcus Smart.
well, because I can't sign Oakley to a player deal.
He cannot sign Oakley. He can't, and Jack Haley's dead, so we can't have him. You know, for those at home who don't remember Jack Haley, he was the guy the Bulls signed pretty much for the only reason to make sure that Dennis Rodman didn't get himself into trouble. So that was Jack Haley's job. He was a player coach, and somehow Jack Haley died way before Dennis Rodman, which there would have been crazy odds on that. So,
well, Keith Richards is still alive.
That is true. Yeah, who would have thought that that Watts would have been the first one to die for the Stones? So, although Richards has probably been undead for at least the last 15 to 20 years.
There's something we definitely don't know.
He's got one episode of The Simpsons where Mr. Burns says every single disease and they're all fighting each other, so he's still alive.
Yeah,
that's very much the possibility with Keith Richards. So
they've been making Keith Richards is going to die joked for over 30 years.
Yeah, pretty much. So, by the way, one other thing just about the Celtics team, I'm now worried about where their toughness is going to come from, because Brown is probably the most likely, and Brown is not a fighter.
Right.
And Al's a leader, but he's not a fighter. I'm worried we may need to sign a Morris twin or a Lopez twin in order to really get where we need to be. But I'm worried this team is going to be soft now without Marcus there, but we shall see.
It'll be interesting. That's the great thing about the NBA. I mean, everything changes daily, it seems.
That said, the Celtics should probably be the Eastern Conference favorites with Porzingis, particularly since the Bucks lost Middleton, and I know that the Heat just beat us in the playoffs. I do not think that is a replicable situation.
No, it's not.
So I think they should be the favorites in the East. I still would take the Nuggets. I would have taken the Nuggets had the Celtics gotten through the Heat. I still would take the Nuggets next year for the best team.
Well,
So.
it'll definitely be interesting going forward. So I guess at this point we'll just wrap things up. Again, if you want to be part of our Pro Football Hall of Fame mock committee, and just I don't think I really went into detail what it is. Basically, we're reenacting it as if the Pro Football Hall of Fame began in 1946. For those unaware, it began in 1963, which is also sort of like why we see a lot of people like the aforementioned Randy Gradishar, who probably would have been in under if it was created earlier. And
Yes, Randy Gradishar is 100% in. It was created earlier.
Yeah, and some others, and maybe there might be some people who got in that we all will not elect. I don't know. It's going to be a fun process.
Bill Power.
That might be one. So,
just by the way, are we starting with the other committees as well? So contributor and whatever we
just contributor, or no, sorry, just senior. Only because like when I look at contributors, I mean, when you look at your first group, a lot of them are people like Curly Lambeau, who was still a player, or George Hallis, who's still a player.
So we're gonna be waiting 15, 20 years before we start with the contributors.
I think so. I'm going to let the one-man head of that one, Mr. Laspinuso, take care of that. Speaking of Mr. Laspinuso, he does a show on the Buchnerverse network called Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame Case 4. His last one was about George Pudge Heffelfinger, the first man to be paid for his work as a pro football player. He wants to do something for me. He's doing Don Cherry next week.
Oh, wow.
So that'll be probably a pretty big conversation. That's one that I want, one that I know will never happen. And I think sort of a whole deep dive as to why he won't, and maybe for people under the age of 30 who just see him one way. Well, as someone over the age of 30 and remembers a few other things about him, just how vital he was to Canadian hockey. I think that's going to be a really good conversation.
I feel like Don Cherry will get in eventually, but never when he's alive, and like not within 20 years. It's one of those things that like they're gonna have like a cleanup committee for like the 150th anniversary of hockey, and they're gonna put Don Cherry in.
It depends where the culture shifts. You know, because like there's a lot of people that will just say he's the biggest racist of all time. Yeah, mostly towards Swedish people. There's not really an anti-Swedish defamation league that I'm aware of, but it's going to be a really fascinating thing to really sort of look at who he is, who he was, because as a player, he obviously didn't what he's wearing. Yeah, actually, I got something to tell you after this. Speaking of that sort of thing, but which I almost dropped today, but but we didn't sort of go in that direction. But I'll tell you that after, and maybe we will. So there's that. I was going to record a latest show for How the Hell Was This a Hit, but I went to a funeral instead. So that's going to be recorded on Tuesday, where we look at Cheech and Chong's Earache My Eye. So that'll be coming up soon. Our review on Super Bowl 6 will be up. So we're also looking for a special guest on Super Bowl 7. So hey, Dolphins fans, maybe you might want to be a part of that. And our look at roller games will be coming up on the Classic Sports Review.
Is Mercury Morris available?
Maybe he's still alive.
They don't have to talk to him for like another 6 months when the last team loses. So
that's true. He's got nothing to say right now until then. That'd be actually a pretty good get. Wouldn't it? I
mean, might as well ask. Worst he can say is no. I'm sure we know he loves to talk about that team.
The worst thing anyone has said to me is it's already been said to me, which is go F yourself. And that's been said to me. So I don't think I can go below that bar.
Yeah, well, there we go. Yeah. So, by the way, I'm headed out this afternoon very shortly to go watch the U.S. play Jamaica. And
so I'm going to be in a place where I can see you?
I'm sorry?
Going to be seats where I can see you?
We're going to be behind the goal, the first row of the second section.
Second section, okay.
So I had my son choose where I want to be because he's short. I said, we can be here, but you're going to be in the back and it's going to be hard to see, or we can stay in the front row And then for the front row, where do you want to be? And he decided that behind the goal was fine for
Okay.
where we were. That way you can see anything at this goal, and then you can sort of see how the whole thing develops if need be. So
All right,
yeah,
well,
this is the opening of the Gold Cup. The US has to finish in the top two of a killer group that contains Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, and St. Kitts and Nevis. Seems unfair we have to pay St. Kitts and Nevis and Trinidad and Tobago. But if we can't finish the top two here, they should change. Oh wait, they already changed the coach. So
there you go. Wait till you go international to play Bosnia and Herzegovina.
they just lost to Luxembourg the other day.
Oh, okay.
So it was a real bad loss for Bosnia in the European Championship qualifiers. Luxembourg is doing the best they ever have. I don't think they're going to make it, but hey,
Hey, you
go
never know.
Luxembourg.
We never know. All right. Well, with that, everyone, wherever you are, wherever you may be, stay safe, everybody.
Take care.